Mr. Rogers, who was known as Fred Rogers, was born in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, 1928. Growing up, his family had a strong sense of service, strong ties to the community, friends, and relatives. These values remained with Fred throughout his life. He was shy, sensitive, overweight, and had asthma. His childhood was difficult for him, but these difficulties made him have a foundation of understanding and having empathy for every child, which would later impact millions of kids. During college, he thought he was going to the Presbyterian Seminary to be involved in church. He saw a children's program one day at home and was intrigued with how much potential there could be in helping children through children's television programming. Even though he was still a Christian and originally wanted to be in the life of church, he thought that teaching others to love yourself and to love your neighbor was the most deeply spiritual thing that he could be doing and communicating with others. And I applaud him for seeing the potential in using television to communicate this lovely message. He was appalled at what he saw children were watching through television. He did not like how children were watching television to program them to be good little consumers. The programs had no substance. He saw this as an opportunity to teach children good morals and for them to feel heard as humans themselves for whatever they were going through. There were lots of discrimination towards Black people, especially in the 50s and 70s. 50s through 70s, and for children to see a Black man and a white man on television get along just fine in the same pool seen by millions of kids starts the normalization of people getting along no matter what color of skin you have. The scene where Officer Clemens and Fred are sharing the same pool and being kind to each other was Fred's way of showing children the right way to treat one another and not brutally violate someone for sharing a public pool for the color of their skin, like the clips in the documentary was shown. Once Nixon was elected president, he wanted to cut funding. He had a problem with stations that did not behave how he wanted politically. Fred Rogers had the opportunity to go in front of Congress and argue for $20 million of funding. He shows how important it is for PBS to keep the funding for the sake of the children. He feels that if the message, feelings are mentionable, manageable, and that every kid is unique, that they will have done a great service in public television. Fred Rogers ends up winning over the Congress with the words from his heart on how he feels about the importance of this funding for the children. Since Rogers knew that it was his duty to bring nurture to children's television after seeing how poor the tool of television was being used for, he believed that TV out there truly hindered the educational value of children's education programming. He entered the television world in the early 1960s for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation in Toronto. His work there helped shape the style of his PBS show later on. He soon introduced Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, produced at WQED Pittsburgh, and initially broadcast regionally through the Eastern Educational Network. Fred began building an extraordinarily powerful audience of some national scope for his public television program. After more than a decade, Mr. Rogers was known for his famous children's television show, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. He was dedicated to bring good morals, imagination, and love to a place that needed it, and that is exactly what he did. President George W. Bush even said, Fred Rogers has proven that television can soothe the soul and nurture the spirit and teach the very young, after he awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom for his contribution for children's education initiatives. The award came just months before Rogers' death. He paved the way for educational children's programming and set the bar higher for TV writers to be more mindful of children's brains and feelings and the impact TV has on them. Rogers wrote and edited all of the episodes, played piano, sang for most of the songs, wrote 200 of the songs, 13 operas, created all the characters, both puppet and human, played most of the major puppet roles, hosted every episode, produced and approved every detail of the program. He put in his all towards this show. Ebook page 785 explains consumer culture. In his CNN interview, Fred critiques how children are watching TV and being programmed to grow up to be good little consumers from the beginning of adolescence. As you can see, consumer culture was slithering its way into every media outlet it could find. Visual design became popular for advertising in the 50s, making its way onto TV, and so on today. When Nixon decided he wanted to cut the funding of TV channels like PBS for not behaving the way he wanted them to politically, is related to page 900, titled Public Relations in a Democratic Society. Quote, PR's most significant impact on democracy may be its involvement in the political process, especially when organizations hire public relations specialists to shape or reshape a candidate's image. End quote. Nixon was trying to make himself look good politically, and PBS's opinions apparently were not working in his favor, so he decided to defund PBS. We have Fred Rogers to thank for being brave enough to save the programming by sharing a song about celebrating individualism.